The night split open with a violent surge of silver light as Selene stood trembling beneath the swollen moon. Her breath caught as the earth quaked, trees groaning in the midnight wind. Selene whispered, "If the moon grants me one wish, let it change my cursed fate." The world pulsed with her plea, the spell clawing against the stars. Her eyes glistened with terror, for she felt something stir far beyond her control. In the distance, Adrian watched, cloaked in silence, his gaze fixed upon her. Selene's voice cracked, "Do not take him from me." The energy coiled tighter, burning her veins, and her tears carved streaks across her face. The night smelled of ash and wild roses, the magic raw, untamed, and alive. The scene collapsed into stillness, leaving her shaking in the ruins of her desperate prayer. The air was thick with silence after the outburst, and Selene felt the echo of her wish burning in her veins. She whispered, "What have I done?" Her chest rose in uneven breaths, her body shivering under the weight of the spell. The forest no longer felt familiar, every shadow stretching too long, every tree leaning closer. Adrian stepped forward, his boots crunching against wet leaves. Selene turned sharply, emerald eyes narrowing as fear and defiance warred inside her. "Show yourself," she demanded, though her voice cracked with dread. Adrian halted, his hood still shadowing his features, yet the intensity of his stare pierced through the space between them. The night seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see if this meeting was fate or curse. Selene's fingers curled into fists as the lingering silver glow faded from her skin. Adrian stopped just far enough that his face remained hidden, but his presence pressed against her chest like a storm. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice steadier this time. Adrian lowered his head slightly, his tone cold yet layered with regret. "Your wish woke something that should have slept." His words struck deeper than any blade. Selene gasped softly, stepping back as her heart pounded. The wind carried his scent of ash and rain, pulling her closer despite her fear. The forest whispered like 1,000 voices, and Selene realized she was no longer alone in her fate. Selene's pulse quickened as Adrian stepped closer, his hood slipping just enough to reveal the sharp line of his jaw and haunted eyes. His voice deepened. "The moon listens, but it always takes more than it gives." Her breath caught as her gaze locked on his sorrow. She stammered, "You know of the wish?" Adrian nodded faintly, the moonlight casting solemn shadows across his features. Selene felt her knees weaken, a strange pull binding her to him. "Who are you?" she whispered. His lips curved in a bitter half-smile. "The one fated to guard you, or to end you." The words fell heavy as the earth groaned beneath them, and Selene's heart ached with fear she did not understand. The wind howled, carrying their unspoken tension through the trees. Selene clutched her robe tightly as she demanded, "Guard me from what?" Adrian's gaze softened, though pain lingered behind his eyes. "From yourself, from the wish, from the fate you begged for." Her body shuddered, torn between defiance and despair. "I will not be a prisoner of destiny," she hissed, though her voice trembled. Adrian stepped closer, the moon outlining his tall frame. "Then you will be its victim," he replied quietly, almost mournfully. Selene's breath hitched, her soul burning with fear and strange longing. The forest seemed to shrink around them as if destiny itself leaned in to witness this fragile, dangerous bond, forming in the shadows of the moon. The night pressed heavily on Selene as she struggled to steady her breath. Adrian remained silent, his gaze a storm she could not decipher. Selene whispered, "You speak of fate as though it is a chain." Adrian replied, "It is heavier than iron, and sharper than any blade." She turned from him, her robe dragging across the damp ground, her heart torn between anger and fear. Every word he spoke burned inside her chest, making her wonder if the wish had already bound her to a destiny she could not escape. Adrian stepped closer, lowering his hood to reveal haunted eyes that shimmered faintly in the moonlight. Selene's hands trembled as she clenched them tight, vowing, "I will not surrender to a fate I did not choose." The wind sighed through the trees as if the forest itself doubted her defiance. The forest seemed alive, whispering through every shifting shadow. Selene stepped back, her emerald eyes locked on Adrian's face. "Why do you follow me?" she demanded, her voice sharp though her body shook. Adrian's lips tightened. "Because your wish ties us together whether we want it or not." His words cut deeper than a curse, binding them in an invisible chain. Selene turned sharply, clutching her robe to her chest. "Then leave me to suffer alone," she said, her voice breaking. Adrian's expression darkened, sorrow flickering across his sharp features. "If I leave you, the darkness will claim more than your heart," he murmured. Selene's tears welled, shimmering against the pale light, and she felt her spirit crumble under the truth. The mist thickened, curling around their feet as Selene whispered, "I never asked for chains." Adrian stepped forward, his voice calm yet strained. "Neither did I, yet here we stand." His gaze softened as if pity and regret wrestled within him. Selene felt a strange warmth in his presence, a dangerous comfort that both soothed and terrified her. She raised her chin defiantly. "I am not yours to guard or control," she declared, her voice sharp against the silence. Adrian's expression hardened. "No, but you are mine to protect, whether you curse me for it or not." The words hung between them, heavier than the night air, and Selene realized the spell had bound more than her fate. It had bound her heart to a man she did not yet understand. The air grew colder as the forest seemed to hush, waiting for their choice. Selene pressed her hand against her chest, her heart hammering beneath her palm. "Why me?" she asked in a whisper. Adrian's voice was low, almost mournful. "Because the moon does not grant without cost, and it chose you as its vessel." Her knees weakened as despair laced through her veins. "I did not want this power," she said bitterly. Adrian looked at her with raw intensity. "It does not matter what you want. The wish is alive, and it hungers." Selene shivered at his words, the truth wrapping around her like a cold blade. She realized she was no longer just a woman with magic, but a storm waiting to break. The ground shuddered, as if the earth itself listened to their words. Selene gasped, stepping back as the air shimmered with unseen power. Adrian reached for her, his hand hovering just short of hers. "Do not fight it alone," he urged, his voice breaking with urgency. Selene's eyes glistened, her body trembling. "How can I trust you when I do not even know who you are?" she asked, fear and longing tangled in her tone. Adrian's jaw tightened, his shadowed eyes filled with guilt. "You cannot," he admitted softly, "but you must." Selene's breath caught, the space between them alive with sparks of unspoken connection. The forest groaned with magic, sealing their fragile bond under the watchful moon. The forest grew restless as Selene followed Adrian through winding paths where the mist thickened. Her voice trembled. "You speak of protection, yet you keep secrets." Adrian's jaw clenched, his eyes shadowed. "Some truths cut deeper than blades," he replied. Selene's heart raced as she felt the invisible weight pressing between them. She clenched her fists. "I would rather bleed from the truth than drown in silence." Adrian stopped, turning sharply, his cloak sweeping the wet earth. "Then you must prepare for the storm," he said, his tone heavy with warning. Selene's pulse quickened, sensing betrayal or revelation hovered close. The night shivered with unseen power, and the moon cast its cold light upon their unspoken fears. Selene's breath quickened as they reached a ruined stone arch covered in ivy. She asked, "What storm waits for me?" Adrian's eyes flickered with pain. "The curse bound to your wish will test every weakness in your heart." She recoiled, pressing her hand to the cold stone, as dread filled her chest. "You knew, and said nothing," she accused, her voice breaking. Adrian's gaze faltered. "I swore to protect you, not to give you hope where none exists." The words stung like fire as Selene's emerald eyes blurred with unshed tears. She whispered, "Then you are no shield, only another chain." The silence between them deepened, thick with sorrow and mistrust, and the forest seemed to echo her words in hollow whispers. The ground trembled faintly, and Selene staggered back as silver cracks spread across the ruined stones. A chilling voice slithered through the air. Your wish calls louder than your heart. Selene froze, her breath sharp in her throat. Adrian stepped in front of her, his body rigid. Stay behind me, he ordered, his voice like iron. From the shadows, Lucian appeared, a man cloaked in black with eyes burning like dark fire. Selene's skin prickled as the realization struck her. He is here, she whispered. Adrian's grip on his blade tightened as the air thickened with menace. The forest seemed to recoil, as if even the trees feared the arrival of this stranger. The first true confrontation had begun. The air crackled with dark energy as Lucia's voice coiled like smoke. Selene, your wish was a gift I gave you. Her heart pounded as fear twisted into rage. You twisted my fate, she shouted. Adrian's blade gleamed in silver light as he stepped forward. You will not touch her, he growled. Lucian smirked, lowering his hood to reveal sharp features and eyes gleaming with cruel fire. You cannot fight destiny, he hissed. Selene's chest heaved as power stirred within her veins. Then destiny will burn, she declared, her voice trembling with defiance. Sparks of silver light flickered from her hands as the moon blazed brighter, as if preparing for battle itself. The night erupted as the first clash began. Adrian lunged, his blade flashing in silver arcs against Lucia's shadows. Selene cried out, her body trembling as Lucian raised his hand, conjuring a surge of darkness that shattered stone around them. The force knocked Selene back, her knees hitting the earth. She gasped, clutching her chest as power sparked uncontrollably from her palms. Selene! Adrian shouted, his voice thick with panic as he fought to shield her. Lucian's laughter echoed, cruel and resonant. She is mine, he declared. Selene's emerald eyes flared with desperate resolve as she forced herself upright. I am no one's, she said, her voice steady at last, her power gathering like a storm. Selene staggered to her feet, her palms still glowing with silver sparks. Lucian's voice carried through the ruins, smooth and cruel. You never asked who wove your fate, Selene. Her breath caught as Adrian tensed, his blade lifted in warning. Selene demanded, What do you mean? Lucian's smile deepened, his eyes burning with satisfaction. The wish you cried into the sky was never the moon's alone. It was mine, bound to you before you ever spoke it. Selene's chest tightened, her mind whirling with terror. Adrian growled. Enough lies, but his voice lacked certainty. Selene's world shifted beneath her feet, her heart screaming that the truth was far darker than she had imagined. The silence that followed felt heavier than stone. Selene whispered, You were there the night I made the wish. Lucian's eyes glowed with cold fire. I was the one who answered. Adrian's knuckles whitened around his blade. You bound her to your curse, he spat. Lucian tilted his head. No, I revealed the truth of her heart. Selene staggered back, tears blurring her vision. I never wanted you in my destiny, she cried. Lucian stepped closer, his voice silk and venom. And yet without me, your heart would never have known its hunger for freedom. Adrian moved in front of her, shielding her from Lucian's gaze, his shoulders tense with rage and fear. Selene's heart pounded as Lucian's words wrapped around her like chains. The night you begged for change, you bound yourself to me, he said, his voice echoing through the broken arch. Adrian's rage broke free as he lunged forward, his blade slicing arcs of silver through the darkness. Lucian caught the strike with a single gesture, shadows exploding like black fire. Selene shielded her face from the blast, her robe whipping in the gale. Stop this, she cried, her voice desperate. But neither man listened. Adrian's eyes burned with defiance, while Lucian's smirk widened, as if he had already won. Selene realized that both their fates were colliding in a battle that could not be undone. The clash lit the night with silver and shadow. Selene's body shook as she screamed, Enough! Her magic surged uncontrolled, silver sparks bursting outward and cracking the ground beneath her feet. Adrian stumbled back as the shockwave swept over him, his blade trembling in his grip. Lucian laughed, his dark eyes alight. There it is, the storm I awakened in you. Selene gasped, clutching her chest, her veins burning with light. I will not be your weapon, she said through gritted teeth. Lucian's smirk faded into cold resolve. You already are, he whispered. Adrian reached for her, panic flashing in his eyes. Selene, fight him, not yourself, he pleaded, his voice breaking with urgency. Selene fell to her knees as the silver glow raged through her, brighter than the moon itself. Adrian rushed forward, grasping her shoulders, his voice breaking. Hold on to me, Selene. But Lucian's shadow stretched across them, swallowing the ground. She is bound to me, not you, he declared. Selene's emerald eyes snapped open, blazing with fury. No, she whispered, her voice trembling with power. I choose my fate. The ground cracked as silver light erupted in waves, tearing through Lucian's shadow. He staggered, his smirk faltering for the first time. Adrian held Selene tightly, shielding her from the storm as her magic roared, the true beginning of her destiny revealed. The ruins lay in eerie silence after the blast of Selene's power. Adrian helped her to her feet, his voice urgent. You cannot unleash that force again without breaking yourself. Selene shook her head, emerald eyes blazing with defiance. If I do not, he will take everything from me. Lucian's laughter echoed low and cruel as he stepped closer, shadows twisting at his command. You are already mine, Selene. Every spark you wield feeds me. Adrian tightened his grip on his blade, fury flashing across his sharp features. You will not claim her. Selene's chest heaved, torn between the men who fought over her destiny, and for the first time she wondered if love itself was becoming another chain. Selene pulled away from Adrian, her body trembling. I am not a prize for you to guard or for him to own, she cried, her voice breaking through the night. Adrian's face fell, guilt shadowing his eyes. I swore to protect you, even from yourself. Lucian smirked, his voice soft and venomous. Yet even he doubts you, Selene. I am the only one who believes in your true strength. Her heart twisted painfully as she stared at both men. You call it strength, but it feels like ruin, she whispered. Adrian stepped forward, his sword gleaming with defiance. Better ruin than slavery, he growled. Selene's tears spilled as she realized her fate would not only test her heart, but theirs as well. The ground quaked again, cracks glowing with silver light. Selene gasped as power surged through her veins, unstoppable. It is happening again, she whispered, her body trembling violently. Adrian rushed to her side, his hand gripping her arm. Focus, Selene, anchor yourself to me. Lucian extended his hand, his voice smooth and commanding. No, let it burn, release it all, and you will never kneel again. Selene's heart pounded as both voices pulled at her soul, one tethering her to restraint, the other tempting her with freedom. Her emerald eyes glowed like fire, and for a fleeting moment, she felt both men's truths colliding inside her chest, threatening to tear her apart. Selene screamed as the power erupted, silver light clashing with Lucian's shadows. Adrian shielded her, straining under the violent force. Do not let him inside your heart, Adrian shouted over the storm. Lucian's voice sliced through the chaos. You summoned me, Selene. I am bound because you wanted more. Her eyes widened as the truth pierced her soul. No, she whispered, tears spilling. I wanted freedom, not chains. Lucian's smirk faltered, his shadows shuddering. Adrian's voice grew fierce. She owes you nothing. The storm swirled violently, stone and ash exploding around them, while Selene realized her wish was not only her curse, but also her weapon. When the storm calmed, Selene fell to her knees, her strength nearly gone. Adrian knelt beside her, desperation in his eyes. You cannot keep fighting like this, he begged. Selene lifted her gaze, her emerald eyes fierce despite her trembling body. I will not break for either of you, she said. Lucian stood across the ruins, his cloak torn, his smile fading into cold fury. Then you will learn that freedom is the cruelest illusion, he hissed. Selene pressed her palm to the cracked earth, silver sparks flickering between her fingers. If illusion is all I have, I will wield it until it burns you, she declared. Adrian's grip tightened on his sword, knowing the battle was far from over. The forest lay in ruins, silver cracks glowing like veins in the earth. Selene's chest rose with ragged breaths, her body trembling under the weight of her magic. Adrian steadied her, his voice fierce. You cannot let him win. Lucian's laugh echoed, sharp as broken glass. She cannot stop me. She was mine the moment she wished. Selene's emerald eyes burned with fury. No, she said, her voice breaking. I will not be owned. She raised her hands, silver light spilling through her veins like fire. Adrian's heart pounded as he stepped in front of her, blade lifted. The storm of fate roared louder, the moon burning above them like an unblinking eye. The ground shook as Selene unleashed a burst of silver light, clashing violently against Lucia's shadows. Adrian was thrown back, rolling across the stones before leaping to his feet, his blade glowing faintly. Lucian's eyes flared as he pushed against Selene's strength, his voice rising. You cannot resist me. I am written into your soul. Selene screamed, the light crackling brighter, her veins burning. Adrian's voice cut through the chaos. You are stronger than him, Selene. You are stronger than the curse. Her tears fell like molten silver as she cried, Then let this curse burn. The night shook with the collision of their wills, magic exploding into a storm that lit the forest like dawn. Selene fell to her knees, the silver storm consuming her. Adrian rushed forward, grasping her shoulders. Stay with me, he pleaded. Lucian's voice slithered from the shadows. She cannot. Every drop of her power belongs to me. Selene's emerald eyes flickered, as if torn between darkness and light. I will not break, she whispered. Adrian's grip tightened, his forehead pressed against hers. Do not fight alone. Anchor to me. His words cut through her chaos, steadying her breath. Lucian's fury erupted, shadows lashing violently. She is mine, he roared. Selene screamed, the storm in her veins blazing brighter than ever before. For the first time she felt her choice shaping her fate. The air cracked like thunder as Selene rose to her feet, her eyes blazing with silver fire. This ends now, she declared, her voice shaking with power. Adrian stood beside her, his sword glowing with moonlight, his gaze unwavering. Lucian snarled, his cloak splitting into wings of shadow. You cannot defy what was written, he spat. Selene lifted her trembling hands, silver veins glowing brighter than the moon. Then I will rewrite it, she said fiercely. The ground split beneath them, fissures of light tearing through the darkness. The storm reached its breaking point as all three forces collided, the forest collapsing into chaos. The climax had begun. The night erupted in a final collision of silver and shadow. Selene screamed as she poured every ounce of her will into the storm, her body trembling on the edge of collapse. Adrian fought at her side, his blade carving through the darkness, his voice raw. Hold on, Selene, do not let go. Lucian advanced, his burning eyes locked on her. You cannot kill me without destroying yourself, he hissed. Selene's emerald eyes shone with tears as she whispered, Then let me burn with my own choice. Her magic exploded outward, a blinding silver wave, engulfing the ruins. Lucian's cry echoed through the night as shadows ripped apart, the world itself shaking from her sacrifice. The ruins smoldered in silence, silver embers floating in the night air. Selene collapsed to the ground, her chest heaving as exhaustion wrapped around her body. Adrian knelt beside her, his voice trembling. You are alive, Selene. You endured. Her emerald eyes flickered open, tears streaking her pale cheeks. I am not sure if I endured or if I burned everything I was. Adrian brushed her hair back gently, his hand lingering against her face. You are more than the curse, more than the wish. Selene's heart ached with the weight of his words, but deep inside, the hollow echo of Lucian's laughter still haunted her. The night felt both broken and reborn. Selene tried to rise, but her legs faltered. Adrian caught her, holding her close against his chest. Rest, he whispered, his voice raw. Selene's tears fell onto his cloak as she murmured, I destroyed him, yet I feel him still. Adrian's gaze hardened, shadows in his eyes. Lucian's mark may linger, but it does not define you. The moon shone brighter above them, its glow almost gentle after the chaos. Selene clutched Adrian's hand, her voice trembling. If I am free, then why does freedom ache? He pulled her closer, his lips near her ear. Because freedom is never free. The words sank deep into her soul as she leaned against him, broken but unyielding. The forest groaned softly, as if mourning with them. Selene touched the cracked ground, her fingers brushing glowing silver fishes. This was my wish's cost, she whispered. Adrian knelt beside her, his voice low. No, this is the mark of your strength. She looked into his eyes, emerald fire clashing with his storm-gray gaze. Strength feels like emptiness when all I wanted was love. Adrian's jaw clenched, pain searing through his expression. Love is still here, Selene, if you will let it be. Her chest tightened as silence stretched between them. In the glow, broken earth and pale moon, she felt the fragile thread binding them, torn yet unbroken. The wind carried silence through the trees, heavy with the memory of battle. Selene lifted her gaze to the moon, her voice soft. It was never the moon's last wish. It was mine. Adrian stepped closer, his cloak brushing against the broken stone. Then claim it as yours, he said. Selene turned to him, emerald eyes shimmering with unspoken pain and hope. And if claiming it means losing you? Adrian's face tightened, his hand trembling as he reached for hers. Then it is no wish worth keeping, he whispered. Their hands met in the glow, fragile and fierce. The forest seemed to sigh, as though even destiny itself paused to listen. The night fell into quiet stillness, the battle's scars glowing faintly in silver light. Selene leaned into Adrian, her voice a whisper. I am no longer cursed, but I am not whole. Adrian wrapped his arms around her, his breath warm against her hair. Then let us be broken together until we are whole again. Her tears fell silently as she looked once more at the moon, its glow, steady and eternal. Selene closed her eyes, her heart torn between grief and hope, and let herself be held. The forest stilled, the earth silent, as though sealing this fragile peace. The final image lingered in silence, two souls bound not by chains, but by choice.